Yeah, Pinot Gris. Gotta go. Bye. Hi, guys. What a beautiful day. 1 week into lockdown, 2 point whatever. It was a beautiful, balmy day today. We're just having a sunset. Hang on, I'm going to show you because it's the first sunset we've seen for a little while. Look at that. Spring is on its way. Very exciting. I might have got a little overexcited in my turquoise linen shirt today, but it's just been a gorgeous day. I'm feeling very happy. We're about to crack a beautiful bottle of Pinot Gris, so that's enough to make any girl happy. But also, you'll be pleased to know it's sort of happy sad. I've been waiting. Qantas. I had a flight booked with Qantas to go to the UK and Italy in October. Bit of work, bit of holiday. They cancelled my flight out. I think I told you this a few weeks ago. They cancelled my flight out, but then nothing happened. And finally, I actually rang and they went, oh, something seems to have gone wrong. And I have my credit back for my flight, so I can book to go somewhere another time and stay here at the moment and enjoy the beautiful part of the world that I live in. So that's all good. Craig, hi. How you going? Hi, Sarah and Kate. I hope Kate Bartlett's on as well. Matt, hi. Hi, Renee. Great to see you guys. Okay, so Pinot Gris. I know, it feels like we've been drinking quite a lot of Pinot Gris recently, and I kind of looked at, hi, Kieran. Great to see you. Yeah, we're looking forward to hot as hell. It's been very, very cold here, and today's just been a nice little balmy day. All the trees are starting to blossom and do silly things, and they've forgotten that it's the middle of August and it's going to get cold again. But anyway, hi Kay, great to see you. Yeah, it feels like we've had quite a lot of Pinot Gris over the last few weeks, but I realised when I was putting together this next box that we haven't tasted the current release Pinot Gris. We went straight to Devil Bean Creek, and then we went to old Pinot Gris from 2013, which was delicious, and then the 2012 Garden Vineyard, which was also delicious. This one, I'm pretty sure, will be delicious as well, but in a much more sort of contemporary, what you expect from a wine that's being sold at the moment, rather than something with some serious age on it. Hi, Rob and Deb, great to see you. Kevin and Emily, also lovely to see you. Welcome. Yeah, so a little bit of Pinot Gris for this unseasonable winter day on the 13th of August. So let's crack the bottle. Before I do, though, you know, we talk about decanting, we talk about glasses. I'm in a quandary because I'm not sure whether I want to drink my Pinot Gris out of a Pinot Noir glass or whether I want to drink it out of a tasting glass. I had a talk to Jill and Richard about it earlier today. Richard favours the Pinot Noir glass, but he does for most things. Jill favours the Sangiovese glass, and I think I probably also favour the Sangiovese glass for a younger Pinot Gris. It is a 2016, which isn't super young. That's one of the policies that we have here at Moorooduc. Here we go, 2016 Pinot Gris. And we're getting towards the end of this vintage, but we've still got some nice stock of it. So if you like this wine tonight, then you can get some in your cellar and drink it now. Let it age a little bit and go towards those other wines. But let's have a taste of it first before we make any rash decisions about whether or not we're going to buy it. Hi, Zach and Jack. Kate, lovely to see you. Glad to see you here joining us. So let's get this open. I'm going to put some in each glass because I feel like being a lush tonight. Here we go. Okay, Sangiovese glass, Pinot Noir glass. I've got a cat in here with me today who thinks he might come and join in. No, he's got shy again. The dogs are having their dinner, so we've got a few moments of peace before they decide to come and join us. Rob, I will experiment with both glasses. I'll let you know my humble opinion as to which I think works better. Let's say cheers first of all. Yeah, Craig, I reckon this one you could give it a decent decant, and it will open up. It will open up more and more as we talk and as the evening goes on. So give it some time. Taste it by itself. Taste it with your snacks. So, I'm just going to get engrossed in the two glasses. Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. in this glass, a lot more of the almond and even a Brazil nut kind of a waxiness, some lanolin, some beeswax characters are coming through, and the honey is coming through in this glass. Much more in the bigger glass, in the Pinot glass, the broader glass, much more pear, much more pear fruit. Less of the honey, the nutty characters are not coming through at all in this glass. So it's really interesting. Yeah, Shell, what are people pairing tonight? Pecorino, pear, dukkha, fresh bread, olive oil. Good work. Excellent. I've been outed now. Thank you, Sue. So, yeah, I reckon a nice hard cheese, pecorino, perfect. Bit of parmesan, perfect. Melted garlic camembert, how delicious. A roast chicken, also delicious. Food and wine match. Pinot Gris is really, really versatile. We've talked about this before. I'm just going to have a sip before I keep talking. Just chat amongst yourselves for a moment. Saganaki, Jeff, good work. Yeah, the honey comes through really nicely in that glass. I think that kind of keeps it crisp and tight and fine. More than nuts and honey or pear. In the Pinot glass as well, it looks a little more alcoholic. It looks a bit warmer and a bit broader. So I like it better in this glass, but it looks pretty good in this glass too. And you get more pear, more openness, more richness in that already, whereas this one keeps it a bit tighter and finer, opens up more slowly. Polly's just come to say hi. Hi, Polly. Do you want to come up and say hi to everyone? No? Yes? Come on, up you come. Up you come. Good girl. Hi. Hi. Look, everyone's there. Say hi. Right. Everyone's got food, Polly, except for me, and you've had your dinner now. Sharp aged vintage cheddar. Oh, yum, Kay. That sounds delicious. Matt, pork in the smoker. Perfect. That'll be delicious. Yeah. So one of the reasons that I suggested that you got kind of, if you had access to a green crunchy pear, is that honey and pear character comes through really nicely on this wine. If you've got a bit of honey, I didn't say honey when I was adding to your snacks, but if you've got a little bit of honey in the cupboard and you can be bothered to run and get it, then a little bit of drizzly honey over your cheese and your pear will also work really nicely with this wine. Just a little bit, not too much. And if it's an artisanal kind of waxy honey, then even better. Bread, dukkha, olive oil. Good work. Good work. And flathead tails will be beautiful with this later on, Kevin. That sounds delicious. So Pinot Gris, it's a grape variety that inspires a lot of passion. A lot of people are quite anti Pinot Gris, and I think I've talked about this a little bit, but I thought I'd talk about it a little bit more tonight, because I'm quite fascinated by the fact that when I talk to a number of winemakers over the years, and a lot of people say, Pinot Gris, I just make it because people want it, not because I'm passionate about it, and I actually don't like it much. And I thought, well, and I said to them, oh, there's a cat going on in the background. It's a menagerie here. I said to this particular person that I was talking to a few years back, I said, well, maybe if you found some Pinot Gris that you loved and that you're passionate about, then you might make wine that you were also more passionate about. Whether that then follows that their customer base would be choosing to buy that wine that was more to the winemaker's taste rather than what they've been making before, who knows? It's one of the little luxuries that we have here at Moorooduc, that because we only make small quantities of things, and because we make everything by hand, it means that we can be a little bit selective about the style of wine that we want to make. And the first thing that we ask ourselves is, do we like the wine? Would we drink the wine? And if the answer is no, then what's the point? And hopefully, if the answer is yes, other people will also decide that they think the wine's delicious and worth drinking. So, hi, Jeremy. Lovely to see you. Welcome. I've got a question for you in a minute. Hello, Frodo. Frodo's come to say hi too. He won't jump up because he's a very polite dog, aren't you, Frodo? Are you going to come up and say hi? No, you're just going to sit there and look at me. So Pinot Gris, before I ask Jeremy a question, Pinot Gris, quite widely planted and made in a lot of places in Australia at the moment. And Craig, I'm getting there. Give me a moment. Pinot Gris is a grape variety that is traditionally grown in. Hello, Aravan. Lovely to see you. It was nice to meet you face to face finally this week, delivering your wine. So hello in person now. Very good. Amanda, hi. Good to see you. Oh, Amanda, Kate and Paul. Welcome. Nice to see you. Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris is grown in Europe, most traditionally in Alsace in France, which is quite northerly, quite cool, but it's in this geographical situation that they have some mountains, the Vosges Mountains on one side, and it means that the wine region of Alsace is in what they call a rain shadow. And the rain shadow, and anyone who's a geography teacher here or who studied geography at school will know exactly what I'm talking about, but for everybody else, a rain shadow is when the weather comes across the mountains, and because of the change in pressure, the clouds going over the mountains, then they tend to drop their water, the rain, on that side of the mountain as they hit the mountain, and they come across and there's no water left, there's no rain left to fall on the plains behind the mountains. And so that's Alsace. Alsace is in a rain shadow, so they have a cool climate. They have a very sunny, dry climate as well, which means Pinot Gris, Riesling and Gewürztraminer can grow and ripen slowly because it's cool for a long time because it's dry and there's no serious disease pressure, which means you get a lot of development of flavour, a lot of richness, and those flavours develop slowly and gradually, and so you get quite a big, rich, complex style of wine. They also grow a lot of Pinot Gris in Italy, and they call it Pinot Grigio there. It's exactly the same grape variety, just Grigio is the Italian word for grey, and Gris is the French word for grey. So it's grey Pinot. It's Pinot Noir that isn't white, it isn't black. Pinot Noir, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. And in fact, when you pick the grapes, certainly here, when we get it ripe and pick it, it actually has this kind of pinky, coppery, grey colour to it. So it's quite interesting, which is how we make our Pinot Grigio skins, which we've already talked about. We don't need to talk about that again. Hi, Jeff. Lovely to see you. Jeff Quirk and Nina and Pete are there. Hi. Pinot Gris is grown in Australia in lots and lots of places, and a lot of places people grow it in the Italian Grigio style, which doesn't actually correspond to all Grigios, because in Italy there are some really beautiful, serious, complex, layered, fabulous wines made from Pinot Grigio. But in the plains, in the Veneto around Venice and Verona, there's a lot of Pinot Gris that's grown. Hi, Jeff. Welcome. Jeff Urquhart is here as well. Just arrived home. Welcome. You haven't missed very much. We're just talking about Pinot Gris and Pinot Grigio. But yes, in the plains of Verona, they grow a lot of Pinot Gris, high quantities. They get it ripe quite quickly, so it doesn't get the chance to develop those complexities and the richness and the layers of flavour that you get from the better Pinot Gris from Alsace. Also, the better Pinot Grigios from further north in Italy, up in the Alto Adige. It's not a high acid variety like Riesling or Chardonnay even. It's got, at full ripeness, it's got quite medium to soft acidity. So picking it early means that you get more acid, more crunch, but less flavour. And a lot of people in Australia thought, hey, let's grow Pinot Gris, make it in the Pinot Grigio style, make it cheap and cheerful, make it crunchy, low flavour. It can then take on, say, Sauvignon Blanc when people get sick of the Sauvignon Blanc flavours. And so a lot of people are doing that. And I think it's given Pinot Gris quite a bad name for people who like flavour in their wine and who like depth and richness in their wine. A light, easy drinking, crunchy Pinot Grigio is great at the end of the day with a bit of seafood platter or a pizza or whatever. But if you're wanting a wine to have a personality and character of its own and have depth and have flavour and have ageability, then you need to get lower crop levels, you need to get more intensity, you need the grapes to ripen slowly and gradually over time. And that's why the Mornington Peninsula has turned out to be a really great place for Pinot Gris. It's very hard down here to grow grapes to make cheap and cheerful wine because land is quite expensive down here, and we also have growing conditions that require a lot of handwork, that you can't just dump a whole lot of water on it and expect the sun to do the job, because we get quite a lot of low sunshine weather even in the ripening period. We get some cloudy weather, we get some disease pressure. So we have to work hard on growing high quality Pinot Gris. And we have a climate that allows us to grow Pinot Gris that has a lot of flavour, that develops over quite a long period of time. It ripens well over that sort of summer period. It's not too hot, so the acid doesn't drop away too much. We get nice flavour development and nice richness and character in the wine without the sugars going through the roof. And so either the alcohol being outrageously high, or having to make a wine that has residual sugar in it to keep the alcohol at a reasonable level. So we don't have those problems so much here. You'll notice if you look at the back label that this wine, I think it's 14 degrees. Sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 14 and a half. It's a little bit richer, riper, higher alcohol than our Chardonnay, and that's because we're quite dedicated to making this wine into a dry wine. We don't want residual sugar in it because we think it's got enough richness of flavour to give it a sort of a fruit sweetness without having to have residual sugar in there to soften it more. We also like the savouriness that comes with the wine, makes it a great cheese wine, makes it a good savoury food wine. And that medium acidity that you see there, when you taste it, it's not sharp and high acid and lemony like a Riesling would be, or even a young Chardonnay from this part of the world. The acid's sort of softer and creamier and rounder, and just kind of recedes a little bit. And there's more texture in the wine in the mid palate that gives you that roundness and fills in the space left by the lower acid. So you've still got lots of texture, you've got lots of mouthfeel, but it's from the textural qualities of the grape rather than from acid. And it's also from alcohol, giving you a bit of creaminess and roundness. So Mornington Peninsula, very good for Pinot Gris. Everyone makes it slightly differently. We like to get it quite ripe, and we like it to be a dry wine in the end. So it's about getting that balance between ripeness and dryness. So we don't want the alcohol to be too high. I think we've done really well with this 16. 16 was, we've had a couple of 16s, but we haven't had one for a while. 16, I'll remind you, was quite a warm year, quite a nice year for ripening. So you've got a brightness and a richness and a ripeness to this wine. The 17 I'll be very interested to look at with you guys sometime down the track, because I think the 17 will probably be tighter and finer, but it'll have some different characters that'll be really lovely. It'll probably look a little bit more Italian, whereas this is looking a little bit more in the Alsace sort of richness, that honey pear character that we were talking about right at the beginning. Now, Jeremy, I have a question for you, and it's got nothing to do with the, hi, Caroline. Lovely to see you. I'm glad. Welcome to our tasting group. If you enjoy, then you know how to find us now. So it's great. Jeremy, I would like to, did you see the photograph of you on the waiting room for the tasting, Jeremy, when you've got a glass of wine and you're in the winery and you're having a big glug? I'm not sure whether it was Chardonnay or Pinot Gris, but it's a photo that I've been wanting to use for a long time, because I think it's a very nice photo of you. I think, yes. Why are you covered in wine? The filter exploded. Thank you very much. Hello, Michael. Lovely to see you. Flathead Tales. Excellent. Always, if you guys, anyone who knows Jeff and you can't get through on the chat, you can always text Jeff. He's very good at passing on the messages. So Jeremy is telling us that the reason that he had wine all over his t-shirt wasn't because he missed his mouth while he was trying to taste the wine, but because the filter exploded. He was actually in the process of filtering, and I'll put up some other photos of Jeremy using the filter later on. But I just think it's a great photo shoot, because there's a lot of action going on. It shows that winemaking is not a clean and easy pursuit. You do often get covered in wine. It's great fun, but as Jeremy said, didn't spill a drop from the glass as he was tasting the wine, and that's what we wine professionals are very proud to say. You know, you don't want to waste the wine by spilling it down your shirt. I'm getting, as well as those Brazil nut kind of waxy characters now, indeed. I'm getting a little bit of this lovely savoury aniseedy herbal kind of note coming through in this wine. Now it's just kind of opening up and warming up and starting to show that character. There's a little bit of fresh quince perfume coming through as the wine gets a bit of air in it as well. And it's also, I've got to say that this Pinot Gris is versatile in lots of ways. It's versatile because it changes its character, like a sort of chameleon-like, depending on what temperature you serve it at. If you serve it quite cold, it brings out the acid and it reduces the fruit richness, so you get something a bit crisper, a bit more sort of summery. Really good with seafood and with sort of lighter dishes, some salty, some saganaki, feta, those kind of flavors. When you let it warm up and get closer to room temperature, it kind of rounds out and becomes more enriched. And you get a lot more perfume. You get more of the fruit perfume. You get that little aniseed note. You get some little herbal notes. You get some little floral notes as well. I'm getting some almost rose petal aromatics. And we're going to taste on the last week 6, so in 5 weeks' time, we're going to taste a Gewürztraminer, which is a grape variety that comes from the same region as Pinot Gris in France. The Gewürztraminer has this incredible rose petal character, but Pinot Gris, when it's ripe, also has a little bit of that spice and a little bit of that rose petal. So it's often something that people will, if they're tasting the wine blind and if the wine's looking very floral, then they might mistake Pinot Gris for Gewürztraminer. I think that this wine, if you didn't look at the label, then you might make that mistake. But I think it's a little bit softer and rounder than a Gewürztraminer would be with this amount of richness. Jeff, the Chardonnays do age exceptionally well, and the Pinot Gris ages also extraordinarily well. In a couple of our previous boxes, we actually, because I'm quite passionate about the Pinot Gris and sort of sharing this wine with people who maybe sort of think of Pinot Gris as a secondary quality grape variety compared to Chardonnay. I decided earlier on in these tastings to share a couple of our older Pinot Gris. So we've already tasted in this series a 2013 Pinot Gris and a 2012 Pinot Gris. And I think that those of you who were there for that tasting, I think we all agreed that those ones looked exceptional still, much richer, more honey, rounder, fuller, particularly the 13, which 13 was quite a similar vintage to 16 in the fact that it was quite warm and that it got quite ripe. And the 13 is very opulent now, and it's got lots of honey and lots of kind of almost stewed or baked quince characters. It's really quite amazing. There will be an opportunity for you guys to do your own little comparative tasting at home. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But the 12, which was from a cooler year, was still a lot finer than the 13, but much more developed than this wine, but still had a lovely golden colour to it, and some really interesting honey notes, pear notes, little minerally salty notes as well, I think, and really beautiful food wine. And what I was going to say about Pinot Gris being a food wine, I was talking to a winemaker in Alsace, a million years ago, not quite a million years ago, probably about 20 years ago. I'd been working in retail for a little while, and I was just trying to get my head around things. And he was out from France, and he was doing a tasting of his wines. And we tasted his Rieslings, and we all went, oh, that's amazing. He said, Pinot Gris. People always skip over Pinot Gris because you have the Rieslings, which are very lemon and lime focused, very beautiful acid line, very focused, very kind of fine and linear in their character. And then you get to the other side of Pinot Gris and taste Gewürztraminer. It's all about flowers and opulence and richness and really pretty. And people skip Pinot Gris because they go, it's kind of not that and it's not that, and kind of gets lost in the middle. He said Pinot Gris is the red wine lover's white wine. And what he meant by that is that Pinot Gris has weight and body to it, particularly when it's made like this, that it works very well with a lot of food that you would usually think about pairing to, that you'd usually think red wine should be paired to. So yeah, Jeremy, the phenolics and structure in Pinot Gris really important, particularly with these riper styles. And the phenolics, we talk about phenolics in white wine and we talk about tannins in red wine, and they're not quite the same thing, but they're certainly interchangeable. It's what gives the wine the texture and the bite and the kind of grab on the palate, which makes these wines very ageable, as Jeremy has pointed out, and also makes these wines really good to match to, as I've said to you guys 100 times if I've told you once, Pinot Gris goes fabulously with cheese. When it's older, it goes really well with washed rind cheese. A younger version like this, I think, is really lovely with a salty hard cheese like a pecorino or a fresh Parmesan, a little bit of honey on there. Very good with meat, though. It works really well with pate, Kay, absolutely. That would be delicious. And Pinot Gris works well with kind of sautéed livers, if you're into that kind of thing, calves livers or chicken livers. It works really well with veal. It works really well with pork or chicken. So sort of white proteins works very, very well with, but it also works well with kind of richer fish dishes. If you think of a bouillabaisse or something like that, which has got tomato and fish and some garlic aioli on top, there's a lot of big flavors there. And a Pinot Gris like this works really, really well with it. Absolutely, Jeff. Saganaki, that saltiness, that meltiness, that sort of squeakiness in the teeth that cheese has, just does really lovely things with a wine like this Pinot Gris. And it's, I think a lot of Australians get very tempted to try and make Pinot Gris with more acid than it wants to have. So they either pick it early, so before it's developed a lot of richness and ripeness, or they add lots of acid in the winemaking. To kind of make it crisper and more crunchy. And I think one of the nice things about this wine is that we've kind of let that wine sit with its where it wants to be, with its ripeness level and its acid level. We might give it a little tweak when we pick the fruit if the pH is a little bit high, but we're not adding acid to change the acid flavor of the wine. We're just getting it to a place where it's very safe and stable, and then the winemaking proceeds very nicely after that. So this wine is a medium acid wine. There's enough acid there to kind of clean it up, but it's not tangy like a Chardonnay, and that softer acid works really, really well with cheese, works really well with meat, with sort of, you know, you could have that with sort of truffled chicken, would be really delicious. For those of you who are in lockdown in Melbourne, we've been discovering the joys of takeaway restaurant food as we get sick of cooking for ourselves. Just a couple of shout outs to some restaurants that I think are doing an amazing job on the Mornington Peninsula. The guys at Volpino, we mentioned them earlier. They're making great pizza for takeaway, and they're doing lots of other good stuff. They've got a French hamper this weekend. I'm not sure if the offer's still open, but it looked pretty delicious. You've got Osteria Tedesca doing beautiful takeaway food boxes. That's a different theme every week, and that's really awesome. But if you're in Melbourne and you're in lockdown, there's a group of chefs who have started up a takeaway delivery service, and it's called Providor with a double O, like Providor. So they bring it to your door. And a lot of really great restaurants in Melbourne are using this service to do home delivery. I know that Cutler & Co., Cumulus Inc., Supernormal, those guys. I know that Restaurant Philippe is using them. There's a lot. If you have a look at if you're in Melbourne and you're feeling a bit like you're missing your restaurant food, just have a little Google. What they do is they get the food ready. It's not plate ready. They get it ready for you to reheat, and they deliver the food at night. They're little food delivery ninjas, and they deliver the food at night. And yes, they do also do Movida. It's awesome. Do they do live cooking classes, Shell? Cool. So they deliver at night between sort of 3 a.m. and 8 a.m. So if you live in an apartment, you need to give them access. If you live in a house, you just leave your esky outside for them to deliver or whatever. And then you wake up in the morning and your food's there, and you pop it in the fridge, and you have a lovely meal that night from a restaurant. And we had friends who got us a truffle chicken from Philippe yesterday, who may be watching in. I'm not sure if James and Andrea are there. They haven't revealed themselves, but anyway, we had the truffle chicken last night for dinner. It was so delicious. So I highly recommend. And for Mornington Peninsula folks, if I'm up in Melbourne and I'm able to get myself organised, I can pick up Philippe truffle chicken for you. Just need to. I think it's quite expensive, but you know, got to spoil ourselves somehow, don't we? Very delicious. Anyway, so Rob. Interested kind of red wine lovers liking Pinot Gris. Yes, so Pinot Gris is a mutation of the same grape variety that is Pinot Noir, as is Pinot Blanc. And I think that there is a similarity between the two grape varieties. I think the fact that we make this wine the same way that we make our Chardonnay, using white wine making techniques, but fermenting it in old oak and letting it take time to go through a natural malolactic fermentation, which it usually does. Oh, yes, Jeremy, you have to have your snacks ready beforehand because these guys are absolute ninjas on the snacks, and it makes me crazy hungry every time. I just have to keep talking to forget about being hungry until we've finished the session. When we make our Pinot Gris like this, like Chardonnay, then it behaves like a white wine, but also behaves more like a red wine than Chardonnay does. When we make it as in the same way that we make Pinot Noir, then we get that lovely pink Pinot Gris on skins that we've tasted in the past. And that behaves like a very light red wine and is even more like Pinot Noir. So, Rob, I do think that there is absolutely something in that. And it does depend on how people make the wine, because a lot of people make Pinot Gris in stainless steel with no oak and no malolactic fermentation to try and keep the fruit and the acid and the crispness all together. We're actually looking to lose a bit of the primary fruit and the sort of the tightness of the wine to develop that richness and that texture and all of those delicious flavors. Felicity, Sarah says Atlas Masterclasses are great too. Oh, I haven't checked them out. I will check them out. There's a lot of cool stuff on the internet, even more than just me doing tastings with you guys on a Thursday night. Sorry, that was really terrible. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on the internet. Just make sure you keep your 6 o'clock Thursday night free for me. There are some really nice, there's some lovely things that people are doing with cooking classes and all that kind of thing. I think it's great. I really love the fact that people are innovating and using this platform to get to talk to people who love what they do, because otherwise life gets a bit lonely and a bit boring, doesn't it? So yeah, it's all good. Well, I'm just wondering if anyone's got any other questions. How's your lasagna, Jeremy? Is it ready yet? Or are you still hungry? There's, yeah, Jeff, stop talking about your cheese. We're all jealous. But yeah, so I think this wine is a lovely aperitif style wine, particularly when served a little bit chilled. It's really great with green olives as well. That sort of briny kind of bitterness of green olives be really, really good. All of those tasting things that you guys have got sound great. Hard cheeses. If anyone had almonds, I didn't say Brazil nuts because I actually didn't think of Brazil nuts until I stuck my nose into this wine just before when we opened it. But I think that Brazil nuts would also work really, really well with this. I know there's a couple of you out there eating edamame, which I think would be delicious as well. Natalia. I think that would be really good. And it's a really fun wine to play around with. Fish pie is great with it. Craig Goodman, can you cover Halliday scores next week? I can certainly talk about Halliday scores next week. Yes, I will be sending out an email to the mailing list on Monday talking about the Halliday scores as well. So we can continue that conversation next Thursday. Next Thursday, we actually have Jeremy's pet wine on tasting, which is an experimental Shiraz that we played around with. Jeremy and I are mooting various ideas for names for it, so I'm not going to reveal anything yet. It's so new that the wine doesn't have an official label. So the label that is on that bottle is a label that I hand wrote. So if you can't read it, I apologize for my handwriting. Hand wrote it, copied it onto some sticky labels, stuck it on the bottle so that at least you'd have a bit of information about it. But it's a really fun little Shiraz from 2019. So very young, very crunchy. We'll talk about food combinations. I think that it's a really good time to talk about the Halliday scores because I know Ned Goodwin, who did the review of the Moorooduc wines this year for the Halliday book, loved all of our wines except for our Shiraz, which is fine. That's okay. But I think that a lot of people miss out on understanding our Shiraz because they taste it too young. This experimental Shiraz is quite different from the Moorooduc Estate Shiraz, and it's for people with special taste anyway. So that'll be fun. Amanda, missed the first few minutes. So Amanda, it was really interesting. I'm going to have a look at them again now because I started with my 2 glasses. I've got my little, these are both Riedel glasses. This is the Sangiovese glass. This is the Pinot Noir glass. In the Sangiovese glass, the wine was tighter. There were more nutty honey aromas coming through, less of the pear fruit, and the wine looked really nicely balanced, quite tight. In the Pinot Noir glass to start off with, the wine looked a bit broader and a lot more pear fruit, a little bit of quince fruit. None of that nutty honey character was coming through when I first poured it. And now the honey's starting to come through, the aniseeds come through. It's a much more balanced wine with a bit of air in this glass than it was when I first poured it. So it just goes to show that air is so important for letting wine evolve and become what it wants to be. I still like it better out of the Sangiovese glass. It just kind of, out of the Pinot glass on the palate, it just kind of goes a bit flat across the tongue and you don't get the directionalization, I'm making up words, that you get from this glass, but it's pretty good. As it gets older, it will be better in a Pinot glass than in this glass because more of the honey will come through and more of the richness of the fruit will come through to sort of pad it out. Shell, I'm so glad that you had the pear and cheese versus the ducker and bread because they're very different flavour profiles and they work well with the Pinot Gris. I think both of them work well with the Pinot Gris and I think that they look extraordinarily different. The cheese and the pear will bring out the creaminess and the honey and the pear of the wine. The ducker and bread will bring out more of that salty kind of minerality coming out. That's what I think. I'm not tasting them, so tell me if I'm wrong, Shell. But yeah, really fun to play around with food and wine matching, and that's something that we're going to do more of in this session of 6-week tastings. You'll notice in your box that you've got one wine that we've tasted before, which is the Devil Bean Creek Pinot Noir, which is for week 4. Don't worry, we're going to do quite a fun little food and wine tasting exercise with that wine, and I think it'll be a bit of a revelation, and we'll be able to talk more about that when we're doing it. But I think that'll be really fun. Amanda, I personally like the wine out of this glass. Shell, did you have a preference for the pear and cheese with the wine versus the ducker and bread with the wine? Did you think one was more delicious than the other, or just really different? It also depends, I guess, what's in your ducker, because ducker you can make yourself. Pear and cheese, I think so too, Shell. But yeah, that you get more of the green aniseedy kind of notes out of the wine with the ducker and the bread, which is kind of fun if you want a bit more crunchiness. Have it with a cheesy pizza as well. It works really, really well. And then have it with a cheesy pizza, and then have it with a margarita pizza, and it works equally well with the margarita, but very differently. So there's your first discussion about wine and food matching with a beautiful wine. And it sounds like you all have some beautiful food, either eating it now or waiting for it to be ready. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to leave you guys to it. It's been lovely to chat. Next week, experimental Shiraz. I may even have a new label to show you for the experimental Shiraz by then. We're in the process of getting it designed. I'm not promising anything. What I am promising is that it'll be a fascinating tasting. I'm hoping that Jeremy will be able to jump on the chat again and have a bit of a talk about what his inspiration for this wine, the Shiraz, was, because it's pretty fun and we had a lot of fun making it. So cheers, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy your Pinot Gris. Stay safe. Eat well. Drink well. And we'll see you again next week. Cheers, everyone.